I mean, this is Monty Python material. I mean, this is Family Man material, okay? I mean, that's how nutty this was. But it actually happened. I mean, if I wrote this as a skit, if I did this as stand-up, I've got a very good friend of mine who's a filmmaker who also does stand-up, no one would believe it. But it actually happened. And I was supposed to, and I said, and then the rabbi just walked away, and I said, I'm really, really sorry. I'm very bummed out about what happened to the Native Americans. I'm really sorry that you're so upset, but, I'm just not going to back away from saying George Washington was a great man. And then she burst into tears again, and then she and her friends all ran away, and the rabbi walked away, and I was left to wait for about 2 hours until the car service came to get me out of there. But,
the girl burst into tears. The rabbi did not burst into tears.
No, she did not burst into tears. I mean, if she could have gotten away with it, if she had a Saturday night special with tape on it, she would have blown my brains out. There's no question about it. I mean, she really, really hated me, and saw me as the enemy. I mean, saw me as the most loathsome enemy she could ever have imagined. And one of the things that made me so loathsome was that I was willing to say that the Founding Fathers were great men.
How much do you blame the Reconstructionist, Reform, and Conservative seminaries for the idiot rabbis that you encounter?
Well, they have to be responsible for that, it seems to me. I mean, they have to be responsible for that. I mean, you have to believe. I mean, obviously, I was an academic. I mean, I was a professor. I mean, I believe that good teaching makes a difference, and that you can take a student and you can really do some marvelous things with that student. And if there's a really good core program, and you expose people to different ways of knowing and thinking and debate, and you make them literate and you give them some understanding about stuff, then it does make a difference. I mean, I know it. I mean, I've changed people's lives as a professor, and so I know how much good it can do. So I don't doubt for a minute how much bad teaching can do. And my guess is that there's probably, and this is pure conjecture. I mean, I know nothing about the seminaries.
I understand.
But I mean, my conjecture has to be that they must be doing a tremendous disservice to their students if they are turning out crop after crop after crop of people who have unbelievable arrogance and who are this narcissistic and this sure of themselves and have a decided left-wing, multiculturalist, politically correct orientation. I mean, it seems to me, it's the job of universities or graduate schools or doctoral programs or theological institutions to break people free out of dogmas and challenge them so that they don't emerge thinking that they know everything. I mean, that they feel humble, that they are humbled by the experience, and that they don't feel cocksure, that they don't have all the answers, that they are in there struggling along, yes, at a higher level of understanding and knowledge. Certainly, that's critical, but they're struggling along with the flock, that they're, the same way as a professor. I mean, if you stop learning, I mean, yes, I mean, you're a fellow learner with your students, yes, at a much more advanced stage. But I think what happens is that these predilections that these people probably come with, they must be reinforced in these institutions. I can't imagine it could be otherwise. These institutions should be challenging these people, and clearly they are not doing it. If we are looking at, 3 different denominations, I mean, I don't know what there is to choose particularly between, say, the Reconstructionists and Reform. I mean, I don't know the ins and the outs, but, or where they merge at the ends. I mean, obviously there are some conservative rabbis who are almost indistinguishable from Reform rabbis and blah, 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 but my guess is that they are all probably getting very similar orientations, and when they're being taught about the importance, and heaven help us, I'm sure they're given unending courses on, Jewish teaching on social justice, which is basically about being a liberal Democrat. I mean, when I was growing up, I mean, I would tell this as a lot of times when I go to speak at a congregation, I have 2 or 3 old Adlai Stevenson buttons from my childhood, and I'll wear one, and then someone will say, "Well, why are you wearing that button?" And I say, "Well, I think it's really important when I'm in a shul that I wear this button because, you see, when I was growing up, all the Jews around me thought that that's who God was." God was a celestial version of Adlai Stevenson. That's who they were worshiping. That's who they were worshiping. They're worshiping a God who believed what Adlai Stevenson believed. And I happen to believe that is, I mean, basically, if you look at some of these, you look at what goes on, I mean, it's the Democratic Party at prayer. I mean, that's what it is. It's a set of these beliefs which are never to be challenged, and to even raise a question about them is to show oneself to be, monstrous. I mean, that, if you could say, even raise a question that, say, late-term abortion strikes you as troubling, or if you would say, I mean, anything like that would be regarded as the worst kind of heresy. And again, I mean, these institutions must be reinforcing this in a very, very severe way, or there's no other way to account for it, unless they're all coming. I mean, they're all going through them, and they all seem to be emerging with worldviews that are pretty identical. So the institutions, therefore, I would say, are failing to do what they ought to be doing, which is turning out people who can think for themselves and who are willing to entertain opposing ideas and learn from them. And they're not. These are defensive people who know what they know and are certain that they're right. But underneath that certainty, of course, there's an insecurity. And so if you're there challenging it, they resent you. They don't see it as an opportunity to learn something, or even to debate in a civil way, but they react in a kind of hostile way, or they look to discredit you somehow, or question your motives or your character or whatever, rather than understanding that, thoughtful, decent people can disagree about something, but somehow your motives are suspect. I mean that's what was so ugly about this whole Aronoff SPLC business. I mean, you'd like to think that there could be an honorable debate, and I love, by the way, the throwaway line I don't know if you saw the emails when Aronoff says, that there's a really important debate out there, that immigration, but these people, their positions are way off, and they're not responsible people to be in the debate. I'm thinking, okay, Gideon, who are the people you're willing to debate? The answer is there's no one he's willing to debate. I mean, there's no one, basically what he's saying is you can only debate with me if you accept my assumptions. And no, I don't accept your assumptions. I'm not going to begin from that place. It was when I was called by by JTA, when this journalist, Derek Fingerhut, called me. I mean, it was really funny. I mean, he took this process. I mean, he calls me up. This is when I first found out about this horrible stuff. And I found out about it from him. He calls up and he says, are you aware about the charges that have been raised by Gideon Aronoff and the Southern Poverty Law Center about you, and do anything to say in your defense? And I said, I couldn't believe it. I said, what's your name? I said, Fingerhut. Back up, buddy. Back up. Start again. I'm not on trial. You're not the Southern Poverty Law Center and Aronoff are not the prosecuting attorneys. I haven't committed any crime, and you're not the judge. So now start again. What's their beef? And, what's their problem? And what did they say? And I'll respond to that. But don't put me in the docket. There's, obviously, another major problem dealing with Jewish organizations and the Jewish press, and that is they're all on the other side of this issue. They're all on the other side. There's not a single one that breaks ranks on this. That's another thing that I find tragic, and, well, I guess I'll just leave it at tragic. I mean, here's this community that, everyone used to laugh and say 2 Jews, 3 opinions, and in my own family, my great-aunts and uncles, there were communists, socialists, Zionists, American patriots,